Mazomanie Village Board to order. The meeting was properly posted on February 22nd. Roll call.
Harrop,
Here.
Beal,
Here.
Dearson,
Here.
Mickelson, Sander,
Here.
Schlamp, Springstead.
We have a quorum, so we will conduct business. Item 4, additions or corrections to the agenda. If none, we'll approve the agenda. I do have one. I'd like to suggest under old business, we consolidate items 3 and 4, utility financial summary and update on the electric utility rate case.
Motion to approve it.
Motion by Jeff to approve with that change.
Second.
Second by Les. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed by the same sign. That motion is carried. Item 5, approve minutes from the last regular board meeting. Those minutes were well done.
Oh, thank you.
So moved.
By Jerry.
Second.
By Ray. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed by the same sign. That motion is carried. Item 6, appearances and significant correspondence. Other than Kim sitting way in the back, is there anyone else who wants to speak on any topic this evening? We're going to ask you to sign up for that. Hearing none, we have with us tonight Kim Mindham, who is going to talk about project recovery. Typically we allot 3 minutes for this, Kim. I'm not going to watch the clock that close. Okay?
Step forward so you can hear me. Hello. My name's Kim Minda, and I am with Project Recovery, which is a FEMA-funded program managed by Cooley Cap. I don't know how many are familiar with Cooley Cap, but it's an organization that has lots of programs that help lots of people. Project Recovery exists because FEMA has recognized that there is an emotional component in flood recovery. And so they're addressing that component by sending out outreach workers like myself, crisis counselors, to help people in the next stages of flood recovery. There are lots of, there's lots of trauma involved with survivors of natural disasters. So we see similar responses to that type of trauma, and so we try to help them get to the next stage where they find it manageable. And it looks different for every person because they're in different stages of recovery from the flooding. So sometimes they just feel immobilized, stuck. That's very common. Fearful, hypervigilant, depressed, lots of sleep. So we basically, we also recognize that we have to reach out, that people aren't going to come to us for lots of reasons. Unless, the exceptional person will make the phone call, but usually we go canvassing, we go door to door, and try and identify people that might need our help. And so we do lots of nuts and bolts things, try to find them the things that they still need, and which is a variety of things. I have discovered people who still are living out of totes and sleeping on air mattresses, and some people are way farther along than that. So whatever they need, we can help with. Project Recovery exists when there is a state of emergency declared. So it happened back in 2008, and again now. So Dane County is also forming a long-term recovery group to help with some of the unmet needs. So we're meeting with them. We're going to be a part of that group. So you'll be seeing us in the next few months until fall, at least. It's through the anniversary of the flood. So We're going to be around, and you know anyone that needs some help just getting through the next stages, we're here. I'll hand out some materials that you can take and distribute. Thank you for letting me speak.
Any questions of Kim?
Kim, I was just going to mention, so we do have a volunteer team that's doing a phone tree calling each one of the flood affected, so maybe we can exchange some information. And we've got a couple of social media outputs that we like to use, to reach them. So
The collaboration's going to be the key too.
but I'm working with that long-term group.
Yeah, I do remember.
So I am in that email list too, so maybe you can just get the word out that way too.
Okay, that's super. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Moving on, item 7, Village President Report. I'll only make reference to the fact that in your packet is the summary of the general fund through December 31. We had a positive variance of $123,000 for the year. Jerry, you had asked for cash accounts, so you'll see the full financial statement that'll be included each month in your board packet. Okay. Item 8, Village Administrator Report.
Okay, the report's written. I've been asked to read it, so I will go ahead. Highlights from 2/8/19 to 2/22/19. Flood projects were front and center these past 2 weeks. We are still pulling together documents for the FEMA public assistance. We have met with our project manager to go over what we already have finished and receive clarifications on what we have left to do and submit. I would estimate we are 75% done with it. I've also had discussions with Johnson & Block about funding our flood expenses, both reimbursed and non-reimbursed. For the hazard mitigation grant program, I've been getting documents together for Dale Clemming. I've also discussed with Dale what options we have for grants to help with our 12.5% match. I've had conversations with Michelle's staff, Tracy Johnson, Janine Hill, and Steve Logo about the substantial damage estimates we did in October, and we are in the process of getting Michelle the documentation she has requested from us. That was 47 hours. I have continued training with Tara on utility billing and reconciliations of bank statements. When Tara is recovering from her surgery, I will be doing the bulk of the utility billing. It's 33 hours. I've been working with Johnson & Block and Town & Country about the Cardinal TIF guarantee, 2 hours. I put together the utility financial summary along with the general funds. They're in the board's packet for the 2/26/19 meeting. That's what Gary had referenced just a little bit ago, part of that. I joined the Parks Committee with their meeting with Darren Marsh to discuss how Mazomanie can partner with Dane County in its efforts to provide outdoor resources to the residents. And that's 2 hours. The deadline for applications for lifeguards was February 20th. Kathy Asik, Sue, and I will begin scheduling and conducting interviews soon, and actually they were being scheduled this afternoon, so hopefully we're planning on interviewing next week already. And I'm still waiting for a response from Bug Tussle on their latest offer for the cell tower.
Do you anticipate any problems with that?
Bug Tussle, they weren't happy with what we asked for the lease, so we'll see what they did.
Didn't we ask what arena was being paid?
We asked what we're getting paid for the tower right next to us, and that's what Bill Cole has negotiated with Bug Tussle before, and that's,
Okay.
he said, what we needed to do.
All right. Peter?
Any other questions?
Item 9, Deputy in Charge Report is the first board meeting of the month. Item 10, Public Works Report. This is also written. Mark, you want to read that?
Met with April Hammond from DSPS last week. Did a site visit and public works audit. Meeting went well. In the last month, we've plowed 11 times. We've hauled snow out of the downtown 5 times. Picked up 3 loads of salt. We've probably used 5 loads of salt, which is half of our budgeted allowance. And we've had 2 ice events that required tire chains, and we've also had a rain event that required opening of inlets and waterways to prevent flooding. In between, we've tried to keep the plows maintained and running. And in addition to that, I've participated in meetings with FEMA and provided documentation for project expenses, and also have worked with Lifeline Electric and Modern Heating on the backup generator that's being installed in this building.
Questions of Mark? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 11, Vanguard Commission update.
You wanna, we had the Vanguard meeting last week, Tuesday. The big things we talked about were adding a lead lineman role to the, not a new position, it's a new position, but it's not a new person. We're gonna be moving someone up to that position. It'll be a little bit more money, but also more responsibility. Sean is got someone chosen, very confident of it, and they'll be able to take over things when Sean is off doing other things and being able to get things organized well. Also, they are going to be having a safety audit coming up soon through MEUW, and they were replacing truck number 4, and they're replacing it by taking the truck that Sean uses, retrofitting it with equipment that they need on it, and using that as truck 4, and then getting a new pickup for what Sean will be using for. So they anticipate about $40,000 for the retrofitting and the new truck. So that's highlights from the Vanguard meeting.
Questions of Peter? Hearing none, let's move on to item 12, update on Dane, Iowa Wastewater Commission.
We met last Thursday. We approved purchase of a new copier and a new headworks heater for the plant, and also we started working on, and we're going to be working with the engineer to set an amount for the capital replacement fund, which is going to replace our debt fund that we have because the debt will be paid off this year.
Questions on Dane, Iowa? Item 13 is update on EMS. There was no meeting. Item 14, Lake Marion update. It's still full. Item 15, update on Mazo 2020 committee. There was no meeting. Item 16, violations of property ordinance.
No violations that I'm aware of.
Okay. Item 17, flood update.
We met with Michelle's staff to discuss substantial damage estimates. Our community had over $1 million in insurance claims, so FEMA wants to make sure everything is right. And some of their numbers don't necessarily match ours, and they want to find out the reasons why so they can justify it. Turned out we needed documentation for about 8 different properties. That's the meeting I referenced in my meeting, in my notes about with Tracy Johnson, Janine Hill, and Steve Flogel. So we had met with her, got that information. We're getting the information to her now. We had to redo a couple of the substantial damage estimates. We were told that now, after being told we couldn't do this when we were doing them, now we can adjust if we find that some numbers are not coming in the way they should be. They're really low or really high. With the experience that we have in that group that's doing it, we can adjust them. So with that, there is 2 properties that are going from non-substantial damage to substantial damage. And Tracy has already contacted them, and they'll be receiving a letter for that also. And he's already discussed what it means for them, and both of them actually were fairly appreciative of it. They really felt that they should have been substantially damaged, so they were appreciative with that.
Dale has met with everyone on the buyout list.
Yes. Well, he didn't meet with Michael Drossler, but he did talk with him.
Okay.
So.
And we got a new elevation certificate from Wells, and I saw the email that Dale was sending to who at the state to see if they would accept our in argument for inclusion of that property.
Yeah,
So
I
that's,
think,
that's where that stands.
I talked to Dale yesterday to clarify some information.
Yep. Anything else, Peter?
no,
Any questions?
Peter, what types of documentation do you still have to send Michelle? Just the...
we've sent, well, actually, I got it all scanned and sent to Tracy, and I'm not sure if Tracy sent the email yet. I haven't seen it, and I know he was gonna CC me on it, so he hasn't sent it to her. Just the, a couple of them were, we had a elevation certificate to send, we had a file to send, we had a couple statements from Tracy because the unattached garage was in the floodplain, but the house wasn't, and they had an insurance claim, and they were wondering why it didn't match up, and Tracy basically is stating that the accessory garage was not damaged. But there's a couple of those. So the elevation certificate, and then the changes, or the no changes in some of the substantial damage ones that they had asked us about.
Further questions? We're into old business. Item 1, ordinance concerning utility users on the village-owned Highway 14 electric poles. I'll let Peter talk about this. I asked to have this put on because this year Vanguard is moving all of our electrical from those poles underground. But there are other utility users on those poles. I think Charter might be one, Telephone might be another.
And I think there's 3 cable companies out there.
So go ahead with what you know about, the issue is, can we remove the poles? Can we require these other utilities to take their lines off our poles so we can remove the poles?
So, I have been asked to look into this. I had gone to the league first because they have a good resource of sample ordinances and things like this, and there were no poll ordinances at all. And they had told me that, well, there's a Wisconsin statute that basically we can't ask them to remove it. I talked to Anita Hill, who was actually recommended by the league, but I had talked to her at the last municipal wholesale power group meeting where I got to talk to her for free about this. And she says, yeah, you really can't do an ordinance for that. It's Wisconsin statute, there's a PSC 130.09, and basically it says we can't, if we ask them to remove their lines, we have to pay for them to be put somewhere else. But they do have pole attachment agreements, which I went through our records to try to find the pole attachment agreements that we have. I went well back, even predating Sue by several people. Found a check for $3.10 from 1945 that was never cashed from the telephone company. But I didn't find any pole attachment agreements, so I'm keep looking for that. However, Sean has already approached the cable companies, Sean Dilley from Vanguard, about this, and they're going to be meeting with him to talk about the lines to remove them. As long they can remove them, it's just we can't force them at a certain point. One of the things, though, that I found that Anita had talked about at that meeting I was at, and the reason she was at that meeting was about small cell wireless telecommunications. And the league had actually asked her to create a sample ordinance, which I think we should pass on to Bill Cole to look at, to see if we want to add that. That is the next thing, is the small cell.
What is that?
It's basically to get wireless to 5G, and the FCC doesn't want anyone standing in the way, including villages and cities, to having that technology being put in place. So they're very restrictive. There's a 2018 small cell order that will be in effect in another couple months, restricting how much we can charge to do that, and the different things we can ask for. But we can do an ordinance for it, and she's got a sample ordinance. So I think it'd be best if we give this to Bill Cole to look over, to match us, and put that in place, because that's the next thing, and it's, basically they put these units on the poles, they put them on, instead of having one tower for the village, they'd have several of these throughout the village. They have a smaller area, but they're faster and can carry more traffic. So,
You know, I would favor talking to Bill about the pole ordinance and the fact that we haven't got any agreements, and just see what he says. If
that makes sense too.
This
Mark.
is not a new problem. This is an issue we've been dealing with cable and telephone companies for several years. We rebuild a neighborhood and put everything underground, and the phone company and the cable companies hang around for several years. So it would be ideal to get something in place as we move forward with all these projects.
rather than let the poles rot and have to look at that. I don't know that we need a motion on this, but is there any objection to Peter Sue going to Bill Cole with this small cell ordinance request that he review, and also at the same time review the possibility of an ordinance or poll agreements with these other utilities?
I don't think we need an ordinance, do we? We can do it without.
Well, hopefully we can do it without an
Yeah.
ordinance, but I'd be interested in what Bill
I
has to
think
say
the
on
small
that.
cell one we need an ordinance for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But we've already got a model one and see if that, and Bill will tell us if we don't need one.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing no objection, we'll do that. We'll move on to item 2, ordinance 2019-1, regulating the use of all-terrain and utility terrain vehicles. The marked up changes in the ordinance as adjusted by Bill Cole have been made. Ray and Jeff, you've had a chance to review this. Does that encompass what you're in agreement? Jeffrey?
Yes.
This is what you intended? This is what we voted on originally?
Right.
Is there a motion to approve this ordinance number 2019-1?
So moved.
By Natalie, second by Ray. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Sue, just tell us what the process is from this point on.
From this point on, I'm going to have to get the red lines and the crossouts and stuff off of this. Once I get it revised, then I'll get it to the paper. It'll be published, and then the day after publication, it will become law, or it becomes an ordinance.
Where are we at with signage with the clubs? Have we made contact with them yet?
I don't know if they're gonna be doing any signage until they get through the township. Because there's nothing to sign, really, on this.
Is the township even moving on this?
I have no idea. I haven't heard nothing.
I don't either.
And I haven't heard from Marina either if they've approached him yet. I think they probably tried to, but I haven't heard nothing.
Did we vote on it?
Yes.
We have to ask if it becomes a legal ordinance and people can ride the streets, how are they going to know the laws if there's no signage?
You mean those in town with an ATV or UTV?
Correct.
They would go by the existing signs we have in the village now.
That's what it says.
Right.
Okay.
Okay?
Wait, so we have signs in the village that tell
25 miles an hour.
all those signs?
Parking, no
Street
parking.
signs.
The ones you don't pay attention to
They're,
most
they're for
often.
everybody else.
So there's no special requirements that we.
No.
Nope.
Get perfect, all the better.
Okay. Further questions on item 2? Hearing none, we're taking items 3 and 4 together. Utility financial summary, which is in your packet. Through the end of the year, water utility had a small positive variance, sewer utility had a large positive variance, and stormwater small positive variance. The electric utility had a positive cash flow, but the profitability of the electric utility, as we've discussed previously, is not where it needs to be. We have to operate these as business units. And Ellers who is working on a rate case with PSC, has recommended, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, a 7% increase in electric rates. Peter, do you want to bring people up to date on where we are with that utility case? I know that you and Tara have been working on this.
Sue has helped too, and
No, Sue didn't even know it was done.
No.
She admitted that to me tonight.
oh, I thought you were helping Tara with some of the utility stuff. It's not done.
Unless it's just questions that she's been asking me, I don't
Yeah,
know.
we've been collecting data for Ellers, and Johnson and Block has been helping us with some of the more detailed numbers, and working with Lydia also at Vanguard. Vanguard has gotten Johnson and Block everything they need right now. Johnson and Block today, they were here, and yesterday they were working on the audit, and Brent needed that to get the initial numbers off of that so he could get the final numbers to Ellers. He was actually hoping to get it there end of this week, but otherwise for sure beginning of next week. I talked to Brian Raymer of Ellers about that. He's very happy that it's getting to him so quickly. He said that if he gets those numbers next week, he'd be able to turn it around probably in a couple weeks or so, that we'd be able to discuss if the board wanted to go with a rate case and what the amount would be at our first meeting in April.
So that's just an update for you. Any questions before we move on to new business? Hearing none. Item 1, zoning administration. I was asked with respect to zoning administration, and specifically Tracy Johnson, our zoning administrator, what aspects of zoning administration he would be working on, and what aspects Vanderwall, as our retained consulting firm, will be taking care of. I met with Tracy one morning. He sent me this email as a summary of our discussion. He said, moving forward, Johnson Inspection will provide zoning permits and setback enforcement for all new 1- and 2-family dwellings and for residential accessory structures already in place. Vanderwall has been retained by the village to assist in zoning administration on rezones, conditional uses, commercial projects, and variance requests. And then Mike from Vanderwall and Tracy will work together on floodplain zoning after consulting with Dale Clemmy. So that's how the zoning administrator position is being divvied up here. Questions? Hearing none. Item 2, discussion on relocation of village compost and brush site. We had a representative of the DNR drive past the compost and brush site located immediately adjacent to Lake Marion. He said there's evidence that the brush is being burned. I don't find any record of this site being licensed. Now, I believe we have a permit for this, Mark, did you say?
We have a permit application. That site is not permitted. We've never been permitted. I've never been aware that we were required to be permitted.
Okay. Okay, so he says, we have no record of that being licensed. It also appears that the site is located in a wetland, and he furnished a map. And you can't have a compost site, brush dump, in a wetland. Wisconsin State Code does not allow these activities to take place within a wetland. The village should I can't read that. Make sure the compost site remains under 50 cubic yards of active compost and feedstock. So anyway, long story short, we need to be looking for another site, folks. And you know what? That's a beautiful lake project that we got completed, and a brush dump is not compatible with that recreational use.
We had intended for that to be screened off anyway,
Yeah,
and it wasn't gonna be a problem.
We just didn't know that there was these regulations when we put it in, that they were wetlands.
yeah.
What can we do with that property?
We can
Turn it into camping.
Yeah, we can return it to its natural state.
It's not the DNR's,
You want to send DNR a kiss too?
it's not the DNR's property. The property belongs to the
I got a word for them and it starts with F.
All right.
So where have we not had a brush dump?
Well,
We've had almost all areas of the village, right next to the village office over here.
I say we ignore them until push comes to shove.
Well, I don't want to put the village in that position. I really don't. That will lead to.
You aren't, the board is.
No, I know, but that's just going to lead to legal issues.
Yeah, you got
It wasn't wetland until it made it a wetland.
Right.
And if you're gonna go by elevation,
I tried to make that argument, Jeff, that it's a man-made wetland, and I was told by our engineering staff that we would not win that fight.
What can we win when it costs us $1 million to put a lake in that they dried up?
and how did he just happen to be going past that lake and see it from the road? No, he did not. Somebody put him over there.
Yeah.
Somebody drew his attention to that spot, and then he checked it out.
I think that's probably correct.
That's exactly what happened, and I'm not gonna mention any names.
So, with that, I totally agree with you. If we were to try and get it permitted, and we wanted to try and make a case that it's a man-made wetland and that the wetland delineation should be revisited, the first thing on their list of requirements is that you have agreeable neighbors all neighbors within a quarter-mile radius agree in writing to that site being used.
You can't get all neighbors within a quarter mile to agree to anything.
Well, that would be our first hang-up.
That was gonna be the ideal dumping spot when we did the road construction up here on 14. We were gonna use that, and it was gonna benefit not only us, but the people doing the construction work. And now they're gonna put the kibosh to that too.
So I guess that is not up to me.
Walter Road is no longer available.
It's not needed, we got it redone.
I'm pretty happy it's not down by the pool anymore, I gotta tell you. That was a mess.
I don't think we're going to solve anything tonight, but I do think we're in a position to be looking for another location.
Larry Lake got some land for sale?
Pardon me?
Larry Lake got some land for sale?
No, maybe, maybe.
We need a location. It's heavily used. I mean, I personally question if burning is the way to go in these times. Grinding may be more expensive, but it may be more environmentally friendly and come with less constraints.
Do you think if we didn't burn, that there wouldn't be so much objection to it?
If we didn't burn, then we would have to stay under the cubic yardage requirement, and we would still have the wetland fight.
Since that's man-made, could we fill in the wetland with the grinding?
Not the first to answer that. I would jump to no, that you're not allowed to fill a wetland.
Lake Marion was considered a wetland because there were a couple cattails growing in it when it was dry, and they told us now it's a wetland. Now they were concerned about the permitting for us to be able to fill it with water. So I don't think chips are be a big deal there.
You'd think they'd have enough to do in Madison, they wouldn't have to come out here.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll solve it tonight, but I think within the next month, perhaps we can look for some alternative sites. Did the township ever come up with any site of their own?
At their transfer site.
They're using that.
But that's lower in elevation than the lake.
And it doesn't have a seal, so all those nutrients are going right into the ground.
Nobody called the DNR.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not in my backyard.
Any further discussion? or-
They want to use it, but they don't want it in their backyard.
Right. Shall we leave it then that we will come back within the next 30 days with some alternatives?
I don't know where we're gonna find an alternative, Gary, because we struggled and we were lucky to find this place when we had to leave out here. I don't know what the alternatives are.
I'm not sure either, but let's put our collective minds together and see what we can come up with. Okay. We're into committees. Personnel. Don't need a meeting. Have you scheduled lifeguard interviews yet?
Peter said today that Kathy's going to be scheduling
Kathy
them,
was
and
scheduled.
probably next, what you
Next
said, next
Tuesday.
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
So we'll have a report at the next meeting. Okay? Public Works and Property. Nothing from Ray. Parks and Rec.
I think I'll just quickly go over that meeting that we had. There's a new, Dane County's going to have a new sign going into Walking Iron Park. That's ready to be put up. They just need someone to do it. The Sand Prairie within Walking Iron is a unique remnant prairie that he said if the county didn't own it, the state would want to purchase it. So it's pretty unique, and we need to be happy that there's a volunteer group that's helping to take care of that. The Friends of the Mazomanie have built a boardwalk across the big ditch, which ends about 300 feet from the levee out there. So Dane County wants to have, their philosophy is to have as many trails to connect as many things as possible. And so they view that as a positive right now. They're looking to purchase some Mazo area properties if they become available. Right, Peter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
They would like to have access from the north side of the village to get into Walking Iron that way, maybe along the ATC corridor there. Stream bank restoration, which was kind of nice that they would be interested in working with us to restore the banks down by the access bridge there. And then possibly team with Dane, Iowa with phosphorus reduction. They want to continue to get rid of the woody species down there that makes maintenance so much easier when they can just have a burn that ends right at the water. Disc golf and the dog park were addressed, and it appears, let's jump in here, Jeff. 4 to 5 years before anything can be done, they would like it needs to be
At best.
studied.
At least.
At least. And it has to be put on the master plan. Connectivity, Dane County wants trails that connect north, and the 2019 county budget has allocated $80,000 for a study for a bridge to cross the Wisconsin River. And it'd be pretty awesome if that happens. Then Devil's Lake would connect to Sauk, to Mazo, to Middleton, and that would be really great for us. Rails to trails conversion is moving forward. So this talked about the railroad and the railroad storing the cars along that stretch on 78, and what they need is about 8,000 feet of track to store cars. So anybody could be clever enough to figure out how the railroad could store their cars. We meaning the county, he said, could convert that railroad line to connect Mazo to Sauk City and get across the bridge and get to Devil's Lake. So they continue to work behind the scenes with the railroad and the DOT, and the Spring Green Group is also looking to connect to that trail. And bad news for us, the bids for the Mazo Beach renovation came in too high, so they're going to be relet. And that's it. So good things are happening around here, but they move not rapidly,
Glacially.
glacially.
Did he mention how far that pushes back the Mazo Beach project?
They didn't, they just have to go through the bids, and they feel that they're too high right now.
But they were gonna relet it yet this year.
Right.
They were gonna be able to start construction this year.
Right.
Yeah.
They thought they went through the same thing as we did with Lake Marion, that they come in too late and people need more time to do it, and need lesser bids for it, or lower bids for that.
That's it.
Questions of Jerry? Moving on to item 4, public protection and ordinance.
I have nothing.
The work's done for a while.
Yeah.
Number 5, finance.
Move payment of the bills?
What was that?
I will only call to your attention on the general fund checking summary.
Can we have a second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, John. On the general fund checking summary, about the lower third, there's an item for South Central Library System, $11,844.48. Sue found that that was being paid twice, so that check is voided. That won't be approved. Is there then a motion to approve all the other payments by less?
Yeah, we
Oh,
already
we
have
got
a
that.
motion and a second. Now we just need to vote.
Thank you, Mom. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Item 21, announcements. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
By Les, by Ray. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried.